Welcome everyone to All About the Joy. Rick is in the house.
What's
We
up?
have been wanting to have this conversation, right, Rick? I'm sorry, say hi to everybody.
What's up? Live long and prosper. What's up, y'all?
Okay, well, all right. You're totally going ahead of the whole conversation. I have a whole intro planned, but we'll just keep it loose. You know what I mean? But first of all, I'm sorry, wait.
I'm geeking out a little bit.
All right, we're going to geek out. We have a whole hour of geekiness. So we've been wanting to have this kind of conversation for a while. We keep saying we're going to do it. We don't do it. And we did have a live stream this past week. So I encourage anybody who's listening to the podcast today or watching this on YouTube to go check out the live stream. It was really fun and it was interesting and lively. I rewatched it today. I was like, lively. It was Mario and Cynthia and Rick and myself, and Tony also joined in a little bit later on. So it was a great episode to start the new year, but hopefully we'll have some more private lounges like this. And today we're going to talk about something that you and I are really into. And I think as Gen Xers, I want to talk about sci-fi and our love of two particular shows, Stargate SG-1 and Star Trek Next Generation. And I just think sci-fi in general as a Gen Xer, I think is very different than what's happening today in sci-fi. So just wanted to start there. Do you have anything you want to share or?
Yeah, I've always, even as a kid, I loved Star Trek. There was the original Captain Kirk and all that. And I loved it. And I think I might have been the only one in my family that really was into it like I was. They're like, oh, you don't want that? I don't want to watch that because, again, 3 channels, one little TV in the whole house. So back way different than today. You know, today you got your tablet and you just go in any room you want to and watch whatever you want.
And the DVR thing, like, I mean, when we were growing up, there were only 3 channels. So, I mean, so there was ABC, NBC, and CBS, but then there was like the
PBS.
There was PBS too, but that didn't really count, right? No, I mean, it did, but
Kind of didn't, honestly.
Well,
Sorry.
I guess it was like Sesame Street was on there or something.
Yeah.
But the 3 main networks were those 3. And then you had, was it UHC?
UHF, if you had the right antenna.
UHF. And and all I remember it was like channel 56. That's why in my head, that's what I have as a trigger point. But so you watched Star Trek, the original back then with your, you were way too young.
I enjoyed sci-fi even then. Yeah.
That was one of my questions to you is when did you start? But you liked it, way back then. Okay.
Yeah, that. And then when the original Battlestar Galactica, I ate that all up. And I was like, oh, yes, more sci-fi, more space stuff. I love it.
How old were you? So you're talking like 5, 6 years old. You knew that you liked all this stuff.
Yeah, pretty young. I can't pinpoint an exact age, but yeah, just saw it and I was like, oh, this is cool. Buck Rogers, then the 24th century, whatever that was called.
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
Okay, my first introduction to sci-fi that I can remember was the Jetsons. So I was one of those people who didn't like the Flintstones as much, even though these were like the same cartoons, by the way. The Flintstones and the Jetsons were like the same cartoon, but just different eras in a way. I just always looked at it that way. And I really liked the idea of living in these weird spaceship-like apartments. I guess that's what they were, because they were still attached to the ground somehow. They weren't floating up there. And what was the dog? Astro and
I love that they had a maid because they
the robot.
Because my parents made us clean and make our bed, and I'm like, "Oh, we had the maid. We didn't have to do none of that."
It was a robot, which is AI
Rosie.
Today.
Rosie, I think was her name.
That's right, Rosie. That's so funny. So that was my first introduction. But even then, I was a closeted sci-fi person. I never admitted it until I went to college and got just hooked on Star Trek Next Generation. And I could not get enough of it. People would go out and party or whatever, and I'd be like, I gotta study, and I'd be like watching the show. And then I got some other friends who would watch it with me. That and like the X-Files. Those were like my 2 shows while I was in college.
I like that show too, yeah.
Yeah.
A study where no man has gone before.
It's so funny. Who is your favorite? I know you and I have talked about this before, but I have 2 questions on this. Who is your favorite character on Star Trek Next Generation, and who are you most like? Ooh.
I mean, the whole character of Data fascinated me because I'm like, wow, you made like a real person practically. I mean, we know he's not, but yet he kind of is. And I'm like, in the
Yeah.
whole fascination with humanity. And then the time where Q offered to make him human, he said,
Yeah.
nope, don't do that. And I'm like, wow, you could have. That's what you always wanted. But he said, no, because it's like cheating.
Well, but it was so weird because he, like, in a lot of ways, Data has a lot of humanistic moral core that humans don't have, right? Like that episode is a good example. And so it was kind of that weird thing where it's like, is he really artificial intelligence? You know what I mean? So
yeah. So yeah, I like him a lot. I mean, so many characters.
I know, but who do you? Okay, but I'm going to make you answer this. Who do you think you're most like?
Who am I most like?
I
Think
know.
about that. Who am I most like?
It could be a combination. I'll give you a little. I cheated. I think I'm more of a combination. I'll tell you who my favorite character is. I think, of course, I've always loved Captain Picard. There's just something about him. And yes, as a woman too, there was something sexy about him. And I'm not into bald men, but I remember me and my best friend Mia were like, what is it about this man? we love him. But I also just love the kind of style that he had as captain, as opposed to other captains on other Star Trek shows, which is why I was never, don't get me wrong, I appreciate and respect all the other Star Trek shows that came after, but I'm really a Star Trek Next Generation. Like I've watched those over and over again. But I really do love Picard as the character, as the leader. I would expect everyone to have that moral core. And for me, I was thinking about this today. I was like, I hate to admit it, but I think I'm a lot like a combination of Picard, but mostly Deanna Troi, who you know is not one of my favorite people like on the show. I'm just saying. And the reason why I was thinking that, what?
But I loves her.
Well, yeah, you loves her like I loves me Picard, right? Yeah, there's that little tinge of it, yeah. But I'm just saying her character, the reason why I don't like her character is because it's not her fault, the actual actress, but there would be this like moment where she would be like, Captain, I'm feeling anger. I'd be like, bitch, I'm feeling anger too. That's your big empath thing. You know what I mean? Like, I always
Do you sense anything? I think I sense something. Oh, very profound. Thanks.
Oh, but I loved that she was the listener, the crew, that she would listen to everyone. And I loved how she interacted with Data all the time because everybody treated Data like he actually was human. That's what was the cool thing about him and that whole character there.
I loved Riker interacting with him. I think Riker was not making fun of him, but he was very amused by Data. And I was like, this is kind of cool. Like his attitude was like, wow, this is cool. I'm talking to a person that's not a person, but he is a person. Like,
do you think you're kind of like Riker?
Do I like him? Yeah, I like Riker.
No, of course you like Riker, but are you like him?
Oh, am I like him? So I was thinking, and this probably come out of left field, like, oh, I wouldn't expect that answer, but I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I kind of like, in a way, Geordi.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Because no matter how hard, he's going to find a way. No matter how hard, no matter how impossible, he's going to be tenacious and figure it out. And
his style is soft.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
His style is soft. His style is very like intellectual, and he's not. I don't think Geordi ever got fired up ever,
except when he made the hologram of that scientist woman, and she went off and
he was in love with, right? That's so funny. Yeah. What was your favorite episode? I know there's a lot of them, but there's got to be. I have one that is my absolute favorite. I've talked about it a million times. Mine is Cause and Effect. And it's the easiest way to remember this, it's the one that Kelsey Grammer is the captain at the end of it. He shows up and they've been in a loop. And the reason I love it for so many reasons, but one of them is every scene is the same scene over and over again. Like how you have 15-minute arcs, right? It's the same scene over and over again with one little twist until they get to the end. So I love that.
Poker in the beginning.
They're playing poker throughout the whole thing and it never changes. But what's happening is they're in a loop. Mm-hmm. They're in that loop and they don't know they're in the loop. And the only way they can get out of the loop is that Data starts to realize that they're going over and over again, I guess, things. And every time he explains it, then they put a secret thing in his head that when he sees something repetitive, that it will remind them to do a different choice. So they had been going through this loop over and over again, and the choice that they made kept exploding the Enterprise. And that's how it starts, is with the Enterprise exploding. And by the time you get to the last time, Data realizes that instead of listening to his recommendation, Picard should have listened to Riker's, and it's the three whatever things on his collar that he realizes he should be listening to Riker, not make the choice that Picard made listening to Data. And when he does that, the ship does not explode. And then he has to explain it all to them, which is also the kind of cool thing, because they don't really, like, it didn't happen. They don't know anything different. So it's so good. Okay, what was your favorite episode?
I don't know if there's like a certain favorite one, but there's definitely ones that stand out in my mind. Like the one where the alien impregnated Deanna Troi, and she had a whole baby in a matter of days. And
I don't know that one.
Oh my gosh, it was
okay.
wild.
I have the list of all of them. I don't remember that one. Not all of them. I have the ones that most fans like.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, go ahead. What else? Go ahead. Tell me.
She got impregnated by an alien, but she didn't know what was going on at first. And then they find out you're pregnant, but the baby like grew really super fast.
Oh, I remember that.
Little boy, but then I guess the alien learned what he wanted to learn. He's like, I gotta go now. And he just took off, and she's like, you're my son, but you're not.
But it was like 5 days, and he was like 18 or something, right? Like within 5 days.
Yeah, that was wild. I was like, consider that. You're pregnant, and all of a sudden you have a baby, and it's not your baby anymore, and it's gone. And what's that? Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Okay, I don't remember. It's so funny because I looked at all of these today to try to figure out what the top 10 were.
What I remember is when Data created Lal.
Right, that's the Offspring, season 3, episode 16. And this episode delves into themes of parenthood and artificial life. Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah. And then, of course, this probably is on the list when Picard lived a whole nother life.
The Inner Light. Even
though he never left, but he did live a whole nother life, and that was really good.
Right, so that's the one with the flute. Mm-hmm. That's the one that everybody loves. It's called The Inner Light. It's season 5, episode 25. And here it says, Captain Picard experiences an entire lifetime in just a few minutes. It's really one of the best episodes. It really is one of the best ones. Of course, the best of both worlds is a great one.
I was going to say, that was the one. I was going to say, when he became Locutus.
Yep.
Because you have known it. Whatever, he's like, you will now service us.
Yes. It's so weird too, because you don't have to say much and you can remember the whole episode. I don't know how people don't get into sci-fi, but I guess it's the same way I don't get into horror. You know?
Yeah. I was thinking about that too, like the why. But a more generic thing for me is it's just an escape. Like I can go into that world in my mind, forget about my world, which sometimes sucks, and just pretend I'm there, whatever, watching. And I'm not in my world. I'm in their world for a while. So it's like an escape for a while, you know? It's kind of how I think about it.
I just like the creativity in it. I just think great sci-fi, just any great story is well written and the characters are well developed. And it's so funny to hear people who just can't stand sci-fi, but they've never really watched it, or they just, and it's okay if it's not your genre. It's not your genre, you know? Yeah. I think for me, it's a little bit different than escapism. For me, it's the best of who we can be. I think that's what it is. And when we go into Stargate SG-1, which is actually my favorite over Star Trek, but Star Trek is the easier one because most people have at least heard of it or seen it. Star Trek Next Generation. It's how I wish humanity was. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just that I can live in that world. I don't want to live in the world of horror or some dramatic movie, or like we were talking about that new movie coming out with Nicole Kidman called Baby Doll or Baby Face, whatever the hell it is. I don't want to be in that world either, although it seems like a fantastic experience by what I've seen. I don't know. But when it comes to sci-fi, I always think about that possibility that humanity can be better than what it is right now in this moment. And I think you've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is, to me, where I understood completely the brilliance of sci-fi, but also that teaches you the horror of it. What could possibly happen if we're not careful with how much power we give artificial intelligence. And aren't aware of what's going on. But
I think that movie with what's it called with Will Smith? What was it called?
with Will Smith,
All robots. It was like robots.
I Robot.
Yeah, that was like, whoa, please, if that ever happened. My God.
Was that I Robot? Actually, it was a Steven Spielberg movie, right? Where all the robots come out, and I forget which one it is,
Like,
but
they
I
were
know what you're talking about.
compliant, but then it turns out there was a faction that were like, no, we ain't gonna listen to you no more.
Right. Because one became sentient. One actually had, and that's what happened is he like killed his creator. And then Will Smith was having some dream or whatever. Yeah, that's the one you're talking about, right? And they have to they find the robot and they realize I don't mean he's sentient for real, but he is smarter than all the other ones. He's aware, self-aware. But he's actually good.
Yeah.
He's actually good. It's all of us who are bad. So it's
one of the funniest lines. I forget who he's talking to, Will Smith, and some executive, and this executive said something that just was total baloney. And then Will Smith was, chew. And the guy's like, yeah. He goes, yeah, I'm just allergic to BS. Like,
I think I remember that. I'm just looking up right now really quickly, iRobot, who's in it. I don't know if this is the right. Oh, it is. Okay, iRobot. It is that. Oh my God, I'm so proud of myself. Is a 2004 science fiction film directed by Alex Proyas, inspired by the works of the famous author Isaac Asimov. The movie is set in the year 2035, where robots are a common part of daily life. Right. He stars as Detective Del Spooner. Right. I remember that. Investigating a crime that he believes was committed by a robot. Right. Something supposedly impossible due to the 3 laws of robotics. Right. I remember that.
Never trusted them.
I'm thinking of something else that Steven Spielberg did that has to do with the future. And I think it had Tom Cruise in it or something. Anyways, let's not delve out of the shows we're going to talk about. But that, I remember that movie. I have to watch that again. iRobot. It's so funny too, because it's been hard for me to get past the whole Will Smith thing and the Academy Awards, but I might have to, it might be my introduction back into watching him without being so scarred, because I want to watch that again. Okay, Stargate SG-1. Oh, wait, you seem to have a question.
No, I wasn't going to say that.
All right, Stargate SG-1 is my favorite. And I just wanted to ask you, okay, so you're really Star Trek Next Generation is your favorite. That's your number one.
It's very close. But if I had to pick if you're on a desert island, you got to pick only one show, I'm probably going to pick Next Generation.
Really? Good. Because if I'm on the same desert, I'll pick Stargate SG-1 and then we'll have 2 to watch. You know what I mean? Like, the problems we would have. Yeah. So I ain't even going to lie about it. I love Richard Dean Anderson in this. As much as you love Deanna Troi. What's her real name?
Marina Sirtis.
Yeah. I think the other thing they did an injustice to her, and I will say this, I will die on this hill, they should have let her kept her accent. I think that was also part of the problem why in Star Trek Next Generation, she came across so uncomfortable sometimes to me, because she was suppressing her accent. And that's very different than doing a different accent. She was suppressing her accent. That's my opinion.
But they still wanted her to have an exotic sounding accent. That's
but you see But you see the difference, right? And this is no slide on her, right? At all. I respect her.
She's British for people that don't know.
Yeah. Here's the thing that's really interesting is you watch people who are actors with an American accent, but they're British, and they've actually mastered the American accent. So they're actually playing a part of an American or whatever. But what she seemed to be doing was suppressing her accent, which is a very different thing to do. It's something someone asked me to do, and they were like, you know what, we want you to suppress your New York accent in this audition. And I was like, I would, but I'm not from New York, number one. And number two, I don't know how to suppress anything. Like, that's not how you do it. What you want to do is, what accent do you want me to do? And I'll come back once I've worked on it. So that always bothered me about her. But I love Richard Dean Anderson. I loved him from MacGyver. And I remember that back in the day. I'm just saying hot wise. I'm not even being like he's a great actor. I was like, he's so hot. You know what I mean? And so I had never seen the movie. I started watching Stargate SG-1 because he was going to be the lead in this show. And I was like, okay, let me check it out because he is fine. And then you just get addicted to the show. The show is so good. But yeah, how did you get introduced to Stargate SG-1?
I think I had seen the movie first, like a long time ago. And I was like, wait, is this based on that movie? I like that movie. Let me watch the show, and then that's it. That's how
I'm
she rolls.
glad I didn't see the movie first because I would have never seen the show. No, I probably still would have watched it because he's so hot. But I'm sorry. Clearly, I have issues, but I just like his. Here's the thing: he's just a regular-looking American white man. Let's just be straight up honest. It's his personality on that show that is adorable. That's what I'm saying, right? He's funny. And he's dorky and yet brilliant, and he's tough, and he's so complicated of a character, Colonel Jack O'Neill. And I think that's what I mean, I don't know this man in person. You know what I mean? I would never make the mistake of thinking that's him. But who he plays on that show is just so attractive, I think, to men and women. And that's why it's so amazing.
Yeah, his without trying sarcasm is hilarious. Like he doesn't even try. That's just his natural personality. He's so sarcastic, not mean, but
No, right.
it comes out that way, and it's hilarious.
It is interesting, right? Because it's like a natural. It's not even that he's like a prankster or anything. It's just that it's like a subtle sarcasm, and it just comes across so sweetly, but it knifes you. And yeah, it's really well done. I love all the characters. I like the crazy backstory of the Goa'uld, and I don't love the Goa'uld storylines. I tend to like the other ones better. I like the other villains better. Like what are the ones that are like the roaches? They're not roaches, people. If you don't know what we're talking about, they're the robots that are like roaches. I should have looked. You know what I'm talking about? The metal.
Yeah. That's way later. Yeah, I'm thinking early.
Yeah, they're way later.
Replicators.
The replicators, but they look like roaches, right?
They're creepy.
They're creepy, but I like those villains better. But yeah. Okay, who's your favorite character on? I already know who my favorite character is on the show.
I was thinking though about the sarcasm part. This didn't happen, but I'm just picturing it happen. Like somebody from another world came to Earth, pretend, and then they're presenting them with a meal, and the guy's just using his hands, and he's here. We use a knife and a fork. You just be like, huh? You would just say it. He ain't trying to be a jerk, but he's like,
yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
It's delivery. It was like it's the perfect role for him. Like they wrote it and cast the right person for it. He was great. Yeah. Who's your favorite character?
I think we talked about this before. I know,
but we're doing a new podcast where we and I have talked about it, but
I definitely lean towards Daniel Jackson.
Can't hear you. What?
Daniel Jackson. He's
Dr. Daniel Jackson.
You know, curious and likes languages, which I also do. There's a lot of similarities, I think.
Yeah. I like Dr. Daniel Jackson too. And I actually like Michael Shanks playing him better than, I always want to say David Spade, and it's not that. What is that man's name? It's not David Spade. Spader, right? James Spader. I love James Spader as an actor, but I really didn't love the movie Stargate SG-1. Stargate. And then the show is called Stargate SG-1.
Yeah.
I like all the characters too. I think it's easier to tell you who the characters I least like. That's good. I was thinking about that today. I'm like, because I like all of them a little bit. I like them all. And I do love Dr. Daniel Jackson, but I really didn't like, and I know that she ended up dying and they took her off the show and that was heartbreaking, but the doctor, I don't know why she annoyed me so much. I think it's because there's a couple episodes when they come back from being off land or whatever, off world, and they come back and she's asking them questions and it's like, and like even Jack will say once in a while, he'll be like, I don't know what you're going to find in my eye. Right. I'm fine, and it's kind of like, I felt like it wasn't really in depth. I don't know why they added her as a character sometimes is what I'm saying.
Yeah. But I remember like after she died, it was sad. I was like, I felt bad she died. She was, not a huge character, but fairly. She was there.
No, she was an important part of the show. She was.
Yeah. But then after she died, and then they had an episode where there was alternate versions and she showed up, I was like, oh my God, she's back. I didn't realize how it was going to hit me. Wow. Yeah. I looked her more than I thought.
Because there's such a tight, it's again, when it's well written. That's why when Michael Shanks was off the show, when he left the series, I was like, okay, I don't know if this is going to work, but it worked. It worked. And then he came back. He had to come back. You know what I mean? So what's your favorite episode?
Oof. Never even thought about that.
Okay. You knew we were going to have this conversation. You can't.
I didn't know we were going to go detailed like this, but
I can name.
Villain.
What?
I have a favorite villain though.
Oh, who's your favorite villain?
Ball.
Oh, we love Ball.
Yes, he's my.
Ball in real life actually died in
Yeah.
a terrible freak accident, skydiving or something like this. But anyways, Ball, yes. And the episode when he has Jack in that thing and he's throwing stuff at him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, go ahead. You were going to say something about Ball. Go ahead.
No, I think like his snarkiness, and he always thought, oh, I'm the smartest one in the room, but not necessarily, dude. And even if you are, we still gonna figure out it like beach anyway. But
I felt like he was the same but evil character of Jack O'Neill.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like he was, I don't know. I was going to use a word that I don't really know, so I don't want to use it, but it was like this, like he had the same authority and snarkiness or whatever, but he was evil and Jack wasn't. And that's why I loved that episode when he imprisons Jack because he thinks Jack is secretly, I think at that point he has a symbiote in him, right? Jack is with the Tok'ra and right, there's some, I forget what happens, but Ball ends up capturing him because he knows that he has the symbiote that is his enemy. And that whole scene when he's throwing those darts at him and that liquid or whatever, I'm like, oh, that is so deep. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, let me tell you what some of the favorites. Oh, wait.
And Daniel's spirit visits him too, which was like, whoa, okay.
That's one of the first times he visits him. And Daniel visits also Teal'c in a moment of stress. I was like, you just need to come back on the show already because enough already.
Later on, they both get mad because they're like, wait, he talked to you? You didn't tell me he talked to you? You didn't tell me he talked to you?
Right. And he's like, why didn't you tell me you saw him? He's like, why didn't you tell me you saw him? It was so funny. Because at that point, for people who don't watch the show, Daniel has ascended, i.e., he has died and gone to a greater plane of existence. But he comes back and visits people when they're near death or dying to reassure them, even though he's not supposed to do that as the God that he has become. And he's defying things. Oh my God. I hear myself and I sound like a geek. I'm like, I know way too much about this show. Okay, let me remind you of some of the ones that are the favorites of people. They're not my favorite. I'll tell you what my favorite is in a moment. Of course, the classic Window of Opportunity is one of the favorite ones. And that's when, again, they get in the loop, right? They get in that loop, and then like Teal'c and Jack O'Neill are the only two in the loop.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like playing golf. They're like, that's when you see Colonel Jack O'Neill for the first time kiss Samantha Carter because he knows whatever he does, he's not going to, no one's going to remember it in the next loop.
He's like, screw it. Come here.
He resigns. He resigns to General Hammond, and then he just goes and he kisses her. And it's, oh my God. Because that whole tension lasts for fucking 10 seasons, the two of them. Like, they never really get together.
And one of the funniest scenes, too, was when he draws the face in the plate and we go wacko.
Right. With the ketchup or whatever. That's Window of Opportunity still. Yeah. So that one is the top one. 1969, when they travel back in time. That's not one of my favorite ones, but remember they end up going back in time and they meet the younger General Hammond. They're like in the 70s and they're in the hippie. Yeah. It's well done. Not one of my favorites though. Let me see. Of course, the classic is The Fifth Race. That is the quintessential Stargate SG-1. That's when Colonel Jack O'Neill gets his head stuck in the thing. And then he ends up talking, we think nonsense and gibberish, but he's actually talking the language of the ancients. Oh my God, I really can hear myself right now. I can really hear myself. And he ends up meeting aliens. He ends up meeting the Asgard, who just, you know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of when I was a kid and I used to see bullies hurt other kids, right? Because they were talking this kind of geekdom. Anyways. Let me think. The Lost City's another one. Foothold. That's when they take over the SGC. Okay. What is your favorite episode? Do you have one? Go ahead.
Another really good one was, and this one had to do with time too, where aliens came and got rid of all disease and everything, but didn't tell everybody that they were sterilizing everybody.
Oh, that's the Ashen. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have to stop being surprised that I remember all this. And the episode there's 2 episodes, but one of them is 2010. And that's another favorite episode. Yeah, go ahead. Tell everyone.
Yeah, no, I love that one. That was really good. And they could teleport instantly through a little mini gate, whatever, anywhere they wanted to go practically.
Right.
And I was like, oh wow, so now we're like Star Trek level here, not just a Stargate to planet,
Right.
but
What they did was there was 2 episodes that the Ashen were a part of, but 2010 is the one where we're in the future. We're way in the future, even of the Stargate SG-1, and we have made a agreement with the Ashen, and they have taken over our world, but they've provided us with longevity, with great health, like we have great medical miracles. There's no more cancer. They've eliminated famine. They've done all the things you would want, but they never told anybody what the truth was that they were doing. And what they actually did was they made women infertile. So they were eliminating birth rates. And what's her name? Samantha Carter finds out because she marries that other guy. Oh, that's a great scene, actually. So she marries that other guy who's a bigwig in the White House or whatever. And she finds out that she is infertile. And then she turns around and she tells him, and he's, oh, yeah, I know. They said they had to basically wipe out 3% of the human race in order for this to work. And she's livid and upset. And then her and Daniel Jackson come up with an idea to use the Stargate, send themselves a note to the past, like the way they ended up in the 1969 episode that they accidentally used a solar flare to go back in time. Are you following me?
Oh yeah, remember it.
And they go to do that, and then her husband meets up with Jack in that room, and they're trying to figure it out. And he's, oh, I knew you had something to do with it. And then Jack is, you could see the seedingness because Jack is in love with Samantha Carter. And he's angry with her that she ended up marrying him, but that's the way it panned out. Anyways, fast forward, they end up doing it. Jack ends up not making it through the Stargate to send a note, but then Samantha comes out of nowhere, even though her husband told her not to help. She gets the note through. It goes through the time warp to the actual Jack, Samantha, General Hammond, and Daniel Jackson and Teal'c on the other side. And they are able to change the timeline back to normal. But again, they don't know that they do, right? It's one of those things that they do it, but they're not going to know that they did, but they did.
I think they were like, this is Jack's handwriting.
And the blood, there's blood on it too, and they go in and analyze it and stuff. So, yeah. Oh, I don't know. Do I want to air this podcast? I do love it though. I love that show. Okay. What else? What other show do you, what other movie, not movies, what other episodes do you like?
Wasn't there one too where, sorry, still stuck on Stargate, where he tried to rescue his son, Teal'c, rescued his son from being inseminated with a symbiote and all that, I think.
His son has a symbiote because he is a, what are they? His son has a symbiote too because they are whatever species. Okay, I can't believe my geekdom just turned off because I had to be sophisticated for a moment. Okay, wait. Teal'c and his son and his best friend, who we love. What are they? They're not the Tok'ra. They carry the symbiote for the gods. The Goa'uld.
Yeah, I just can't. Now my mind's blank. I can't think of it either. I'm like, I can't believe it.
Why can't I remember it? Okay, go ahead. Anyways, we'll think of it. Yeah,
they had already started to develop a technology to free them of needing the symbiote because once you take it out, you'll die.
Right.
Because your body's just adapted to it. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, Teal'c gave his son his, and then he used this new technology as an experiment to see, would this really work? Could he sustain? And it did work, thankfully.
Oh, I think you're mixing 2 episodes together.
Oh.
Not to, no, wait a minute. I have to figure out, hold on one second. What species is Teal'c? Because it's killing me. I can't wait.
I know. I'm going to be like, oh my God. That's
a Jaffa. A Jaffa. I would have never remembered that, but he's a Jaffa. I just needed the J. I needed something, but I would have never remembered it. I'm not as good as I thought I was. They end up getting that miracle drug from the Tok'ra because remember, accidentally, there is another place of people that have taken the queen of the Tok'ra. Do you remember that one? And they've been using her to create this thing that allows you not to age and have great skin and healthcare, whatever. They don't realize that it is the queen of the Tok'ra. And that's how they get that. But when Teal'c's son is dying, they use that, even though they're not sure it's going to work. So that's what I'm saying. I think it's two different places where they find the use for that, I think. I don't know if I can correct you perfectly, actually, because I know which episode you're talking about, but they develop that in a different episode. But I think you're right. They probably first use it in that episode.
Yeah. And now they're dependent on it. They have to have that drug all the time. And if they don't, they die, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. But they but they can't live without the symbiote either. So it's a weird
but it's always there. So it's
you know what? I have to take a thyroid pill now, so I ain't even feeling bad for the Jaffa. I'm just over it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
now.
I'm like the Jaffa. I have to take a pill every day now because my thyroid is dead. I don't know. Wow. That's so funny. Okay, I have trivia for you. Let's see how good you are at Star. Honey, I'm prepared, baby. I'm all excited for this. Okay, I don't care how geeky it sounds. It's a fun conversation. Are you having fun so far? I feel bad.
Yeah, but I'm nervous now.
Don't be nervous. I think they're easy. I didn't make hard ones. Okay. What is the name where the Stargate was originally discovered on Earth?
So the one in the movie then?
Yeah, sure. It's Egypt. Giza, Egypt. You know that one. Okay, I just confused you. Okay, ready? Okay, let's just go down.
Names of places I think.
Okay, don't worry. Who is the leader of Stargate SG-1 at the start of the series? That's a trick question. At the start of the series.
Well, General Hammond came after, right? Wasn't there somebody else there first?
The leader of SG-1. The leader of SG-1.
Individual. Yeah, each team is a different.
My favorite character.
It's Colonel O'Neill.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, don't think too hard on them. They're easy.
I know.
They're easy. Okay. What device do the Goa'uld use to control their hosts? We just talked about that. The Goa'uld, they use what is the snake called?
Oh, the
symbiote. Okay.
The symbiote is a generic term, but I think there's another name now. I could be thinking deep again. Too much.
Too deep. They said symbiote. The symbiotes. That's what they use to control the hosts, right? It's the symbiote because the host is actually a person.
Yeah, because even in Star Trek, the Jadzia, for example, she has a host. She's a host for Jadzia in Deep Space Nine, Star Trek. But they had a Next Generation episode too, because Crusher was in love with this dude, and he had a symbiote in him. But then when he died, they had to transfer it, and she was in love with him. But in their culture, when you die and you transfer the symbiote, you have to change the gender because you need them to have a whole new life. And so she now is coming to Crusher, and she's like, I still love you. And she's like, I ain't a lesbian. What are you talking about?
Oh, God.
This is weird. What are you talking about?
I have to be honest. I saw Deep Space Nine. I saw I saw all of them at least once. And I don't mean one episode. I saw the series once, but I never really got into it. With Janeway, with Scott Bakula was the captain of one. How do you say her name?
Just Janeway. You want Janeway. Janeway.
Captain what did I say? I said Captain Janeway.
Janeway.
I'm sorry.
And that series, I like Voyager a lot. One of the most hated Star Trek episodes of all time was her and Paris were stuck on a planet, and they devolved into some like lizard-like creatures and had babies.
No,
and they were like, "This is the
I vaguely remember that
episode of the entire series ever."
I vaguely remember that. I just remembered. I didn't. It just Some series connect with you and others do not. That's all. All right. Some more questions. All right. Let's see. Who is the main antagonist that the SG-1 team faces throughout much of the series? The Goa'uld. We already know that. I already talked about the ancient. I'm trying to find one that you will easily know. I mean, I know you know them all, but it's like being put on the spot. I get it. Which SG-1 member possesses ancient knowledge? Well, this is a trick question.
O'Neill had it.
What?
Then O'Neill had it from the machine, but then also Daniel died and ascended, so he did too.
Come on now. Preach. That was the test. That's the test one. Let's see. Oh, who plays the character Dr. Janet Fraser in the series? That's the one I didn't like the most. Terry Rothery.
I was gonna say, don't ask me her real name because I don't know.
Terry Rotheriel, or something like that. I have it written here. I'm not saying it right.
Rothaway. They don't like to put away in the end of their name.
Janeway, Rothaway. How do you say it, Captain Janeway? Oh, it's
Janeway. There's no
Janeway.
A. Janeway.
You know what's so funny? All my life, I've said Janeway. I thought it was Janeway.
Yeah.
How are we going to connect the color purple and Star Trek? That's going to be weird.
Whoopi Goldberg. There you go. Guided.
Guinan! You know what? Let me stop. I want to backtrack. My favorite character that I connect to would probably be Guinan.
Mm-hmm.
I would be Guinan on that show. That actually makes much more sense. I was saying I was a combination because I forgot about Guinan.
Mm-hmm. She was cool. Yeah, especially when the time shift happened and they became totally different. And she just kept saying, something's wrong. What do you mean something wrong? I don't know. I just know something's wrong. This is not right. This is not supposed to be. You couldn't explain it. But that was cool. And that Q was afraid of her. She'd be like,
yeah. Q had to be afraid of her because he kept pretending he was a god. But at the end of the day, she was older than he was or whatever. Like she knew who he was and he tore her people apart.
Mm-hmm.
Q, look at that actor. I forget his real name, but that's a great actor, right there.
Wow, I can't remember. I believe I remember that.
Yeah. What's it? Jonathan Lancey.
John Delancey.
Delancey. That's right. Delancey, right. Delancey. No, just kidding. Jane Away, right? Great actor because you hate him at the beginning. You hate him at the end. You hate him throughout the whole show, but you know he makes especially Picard better.
Yeah. And he actually saves them several times.
Yeah, but he saves them for his own because he has to be saved because he's going to get in trouble.
But his fascination with Picard was hilarious. But he's also fascinated with Janeway. Janeway. Come on, Kathy. Because nobody called him Kathy. What?
It's such he's a great character. Yeah, he was a great character. I forgot about Guinan. Did you like Star Trek Next Generation movies? I don't know. I could take them or leave them. They're all right. Yeah.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah. I like the original movies better, like the Star Trek. You know what I mean? The original ones.
Yeah, I like the one too where
Wrath of Khan, for example. I mean, that's classic.
Yeah. The one where what was his name that first developed the warp drive, space flight. What was his name? Cochrane. Zefram Cochrane. He was
Oh yeah. The actor's great too. Yeah. That's a good one too.
And Deanna was drunk off her butt. That was hilarious.
And they go in the space shuttle together or whatever, and and he's like drinking with all the music loud, and that is a good one. Yeah. Oh, and that's the one with Alfre Woodard. She's in that, and Picard, and that's a really good one too. Yeah, that's a good. Oh, I have to watch some of these now. My
pretty
God.
much anything with the Borg is good, pretty much.
I know, although I didn't like when they humanized the Borg, right? What's his name? They called him
Hugh.
No, it wasn't Q. Oh, Hugh.
Oh, Hugh. When Hugh. He disconnected him and he became self-aware, like he knew he was an individual.
I mean, it was good, but it wasn't. And I don't know, even when the series ended, I think that's part of it, right? Because when we started watching Picard, the show on streaming or whatever, that's part of what ends up happening is you realize the Borg has never really left Picard. It's never really leaves him. It's always a part of him, Look at either people are listening to this at this point. No, they're not. And they know already that Picard ends up becoming, I don't know what the right word is, not a Borg, but
like Data.
Yeah, like Data, right. He dies, but then doesn't because he becomes artificial intelligence, basically. But it just dawned on me that Data is artificial intelligence in the way we talk about AI now. Isn't that weird? It just hit me.
Yeah, it's true.
That's what I love. That's what I love about sci-fi. If you go back to 2001: A Space Odyssey, you can see things there. Stanley Kubrick, 1966, I think, 1967, 1968. Somewhere in there.
Late 50s for sure.
Yeah, it was 66, 67, 68. I know it's one of those. But he created this movie, and so many of those things have come to fruition today. What we're doing right now.
I told you when I watched it, I was like, if you never told me that this was from the 1960s, I would never believe you. There's no way. It's like, how did he do this back then?
And I know it's hard for people to sit through the beginning, but there's a reason why at the beginning, it makes more sense when you appreciate sci-fi, what he's trying to say with the apes at the beginning. And it's just an incredible storyline. But that's what I love about it. And even now, when joking around saying that I want to be able to be like computer, Earl Grey, like I do want that. And I have to say, I love my air fryer. I love my air fryer like that I just bought. And I'm not saying it's AI, but it's pretty damn awesome, and technology is incredible. And cell phones, you saw how they were using cell phones or like Zoom calls, and it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. I had one of those first Nextel phones, which flipped, and it was a walkie-talkie and a phone.
Oh, that's funny.
So my ex-wife had one too, so I could just go beep, 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 and she'd hear it. She'd be like, oh, he wants me. So then she'd pick it up, beep, 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 back to acknowledge, and then we just start talking.
That's just so incredible. How do you, and I did warn you I was going to ask you this question, but just to shift it to kind of, because I have some thoughts on this too, like how do you think sci-fi does or does not influence spirituality or faith or religion, just because that is what you do for a living? You know what I mean? Like, how do you think it intersects?
Not for a living, but but yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's part of who I am, but yeah, I ain't trying to make me off it. But yeah. Yeah, I remember when you asked me, like, how do you watch this when you're religious? Doesn't it? And I'm like, because to me, it's all fantasy. It's like a separate thing. It's nothing to do with my reality. That's, again, like I said in the beginning, it's my escape from reality. That's why I like it, because it's completely disconnected from what's real. And I get to escape into that world for a while. And this is the rules of that world. And this world has that rules, and everything has its own thing. Yeah, and it's separation, I guess, in my head. So it's
compartmentalizing or whatever.
Yeah.
I actually think that's a sad explanation though for you, because I think, I don't mean that in a bad way. I disagree with you, but I just feel like the thing that it does is it not makes me question in a negative way, but the way in which Stargate SG-1, the way they handle gods, right? They're actually, from my perspective, they're actually kind of saying that gods are not real, right? Like the whole idea of the Goa'uld is that the Goa'ulds say that they're gods, and they use all these powers, and they put all these rules in place, and they make you follow things, and if you don't, blah, blah, blah. And the interesting thing is that you see Stargate SG-1, the actual crew, right? They know that the gods are false, and Daniel Jackson, being the scientist, he's the atheist in the group. And even he realizes that these are fake gods. Real gods would never do this. Right. You know what I mean? I understand what you're saying, but for me, I actually think it's the opposite. I think the way in which sci-fi influences spirituality, or even technology, like just technology, it's not doing anything it's not all horror. Like the HAL at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey is a horrible outcome. But there are good things to technology too. And I think it expands that conversation, right? Because it presents us with the possibilities. So, and I'm not dismissing what you said. I just disagree with you. I think it actually works in the other way, in that there are false gods all over the place. And that's what happens in Stargate SG-1 and in Star Trek. These are all false gods. And you can tell, because they have a symbiote, because they're evil, because they treat people this way, whatever. There's something else, and it's not this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but also for me, it's like, my point of view, God is God. Unlimited, can do anything. Nobody can't tell him nothing. He made everything. He's the creator of everything. You can call yourself a God all day, but you ain't, in my view, God. I don't care if you call yourself God. You ain't God. So that's why I'm like, yeah, they can call themselves God, but you ain't God. Who are you trying to fool? You can fool people like the Egyptians, and because you can do all the stuff they can't do. I'm like, yeah, I'm a God. Oh yeah, you must be. Look at all the stuff you could do. Or today we're like, nah, son, I don't think so.
No, I totally get it. I totally understand that. I understand the logic. I don't know if again, this is a conversation I don't know if I agree with you to that extent, because to me, I agree with you that there's probably something bigger. And that's why I like sci-fi, because no matter how much the imagination does what it does, and they create these worlds that are just amazing. The thing about Stargate SG-1 that's so cool is just that portal allows these writers to create the most magnificent possibilities, right?
Mhm.
Endless storytelling from different points. No matter how much you think of that, no matter how much you go there, I still don't think we're going to ever understand what God actually is. And I think
Mhm.
that's what sci-fi is saying. Even
The
if
one-
sometimes it comes across as atheist, right?
Right.
Sometimes you can tell that the episodes are written by 5 different atheists in the room. You can tell. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. But the one cool aspect of just sci-fi in general is you can take the craziest idea and make it into a sci-fi show. It's not crazy because it's sci-fi
yeah, that's
or
true too.
X-Files.
I know Okay, you know I was addicted to X-Files, which is so weird because it really is more horror than not. It's psychological. But I used to watch that. Ask anyone I went to college with. Star Trek not SG-1. Star Trek
We're
Next Generation. I know, right? I'm combining shows now.
making a new show.
That would be a new show. Star Trek Next Generation and X-Files is what I was watching when I was in college. Like
O'Neill and Riker go drinking together. No.
I know, religiously though. It was like I was so into. I was also videotaping it. I know I'm totally aging myself, but we were recording it on video, so I wouldn't miss it. And then I had them. And then when I came out to Los Angeles by myself, and I had one suitcase and a backpack, whatever, I had 4 videos of like 4 VHS things of my X-Files and Star Trek Next Generation, even though I didn't have a VCR, but I was taking them with me. It's so
We eventually gonna get one.
I did end up getting one though. I did, but it's just so funny how I remember I got to take this with me because it's such good. You know what I mean? Like I'll figure it out. But
Yep.
oh man, that was fun.
I think it's all about possibilities,
Mhm.
endless possibilities and hope for the future. You know, that, okay, things might be rough right now, but there's a possibility. Look what we can be one day if we come together, stop fighting, stop being jerks, and put our resources together and really work together as humans to make things better for real, without egos, without pride, and
Mhm.
everybody, not be selfish and
without fear, right?
yeah, that too. But humans are humans, so that's
Yeah.
tough.
Well, I mean, I think when we look at AI, I've never seen a clearer explanation of how ridiculous humans behave with something that they don't know. We see that all the time when it comes to people or cultures, right? Racism and whatever, right? So you're not like me, blah, blah, blah. I don't like you. And then I act and behave badly around you, right? So we see that clearly. But what's really interesting to me is watching each other and kind of understanding how we function with each other. I just lost my train of thought for a moment there because I was going off on a tangent. What were you saying before for a minute?
About the
Coming
possibilities
together?
of humanity, what we could do if we stop fighting each other and really not be
AI.
selfish.
I was talking about AI.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. The thing that happens is like when you see people come together and see something new that they don't understand, fear takes over first.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the intention of every person that's been working on AI, I don't want to, because I try to believe in the best in people, is not like they're trying to do this so that they can take my information, they can screw me over, they can do this, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like AI is here. You can fear it. That's one
Mhm.
option, or you can try to understand how it can work for you. But we see that, right? And humans, I hate to admit it, but we seem to be guided by fear all the time, first and foremost.
I can think of a not too long ago example, but we honestly didn't know what was going to happen, and then nothing happened. Y2K.
Oh
The
my God.
fear with Y2K. Oh my God.
So
We
did
see
nothing happen because we prepared for it, or
nothing
did
happened.
nothing happen and we prepared for it anyway? That's a weird question, right? I don't know.
Very few devices stop working right
I
now.
know,
I mean,
but it wasn't our devices that were a big deal. I do agree with you that we were scared to death about. It's kind of like when there's like a big hurricane and they're like, "No, this is the one you have to leave." I mean, I know I'm here on the West Coast and I'm always like, why do people live where they live with all these tornadoes and earthquakes? Because the way they make it sound is they're just going to wipe you out tomorrow. You all better board up now. And it's okay, but better safe than sorry. But again, we live in this. I don't know why, but I always feel like humans are guided by fear first. I think it's I don't know why.
Mhm.
I'm not a scientist to know, but most people do things out of fear. And I'll say like for me, when I moved out here by myself, it was out of fear. I didn't want to go back where I grew up. I didn't want, and I wasn't going to stay in Vermont, no offense, but not where I wanted to ever be. But out of fear, I was like, no, I need to move. I need to go somewhere. But that was a good thing because I took fear and then I just jumped and leaped. You know what I mean? And I'm glad I did. But I feel like fear is usually a negative thing. And then we push away from it.
Mm-hmm. It can be good and it can be bad. It can be protective, fight or flight, but then also it can be crippling where you can do something, but you're too scared, so you do nothing, which is do something.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think the thing that we know for sure is when you think about these environments, whether it's Star Trek Next Generation or Stargate SG-1, it's not based on fear. It's based on curiosity. What's beautiful about the human spirit is that if we could get back to there, if we could be more curious, then maybe we could get to a place where we would stop being so fearful of each other and hating on each other and instead try to find a way to work through things. But that takes a level of curiosity that I don't think most people have. I really don't think most people have curiosity.
SG-1 is a great example because when they would go to a new place they didn't know, they would send in what they call it, the MALP, whatever, that little robot machine.
Yeah, the MALP, M-A-L-P, I forget what it stood for.
But it just went so far. You don't know what else is there. Right. So they fearlessly went anyway. Okay, seems safe. Let's go. But you don't know who's there. You don't know who's ready to kill you.
The reason why they sent the MALP through was to see if it had the right atmosphere and if it could sustain oxygen, whatever. But it always cracked me up because it was always another forest in Canada. You know what I mean? Like it's always like a different angle of the same forest. Like once you start watching the show over and over again, you can see the set design, how it's set up, and it's so funny. Yeah. But yeah, it's the same idea though. You're absolutely right. You throw that rock out there first and you see, okay, I guess it's okay to go, but I'm not sure. And then you go anyways, and you got to figure it out. But,
nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah. But I don't know. How do you fix that in this world that we're in right now? I don't know what the answer is, but I do know I love watching shows that give me hope. And I think that's what sci-fi is.
There's so many shows. My gosh. I can't even think of all the ones that I've watched. Like I would have to look for a list and see, did I watch this one? Ding, 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 ding.
It'd be easier to talk about the ones you didn't watch yet. So is there any last words you'd like to say about sci-fi in general? As a Gen Xer.
If you don't like sci-fi, no, just kidding.
If you don't like sci-fi, no.
I can't be your friend. No, just kidding. And then you got the Star Trek, Star Wars animosity, but that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole other show some other day. Yeah. No, I don't even know if it's animosity. It's just they're different. One's darker and one's not. And we've talked about this. I like bubblegum sci-fi, which just means happier endings of sci-fi. I don't want anything that deep in my sci-fi.
Yeah. It's just fun. To me, it's just fun. It's it's an escape. It's hope. It's possibility. It's can we get there one day? Yeah. Hope.
So if anyone who's listening to this who's gotten this far, thank you for listening. For those of you who are solid sci-fi geeks, I know you listen to the whole thing. You can find Stargate SG-1 and Star Trek Next Generation. They should be free on most any streaming service that you're using. Yeah, Pluto's a big one. And you can find it free there. And I just watched 2 episodes this morning because I wanted to, but yeah, and enjoy. And I guess I would just say they are about hope for me. That's why I like them, but it's also the genre I enjoy. Like I don't enjoy horror, and maybe for horror, that's what it does for Cynthia. I have no idea, but thank you for listening. And again, we'll be back here on Thursday in the live stream. You can always find the podcast. It drops on Sunday mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern. And yeah, at the end of the day, remember, it really is all about the joy. Thank you, Rick. Bye. Thanks for stopping by All About the Joy. Be better and stay beautiful, folks. Have a sweet day.